The summertime not only brings hot temperatures, but also dry and dangerous conditions here in Arizona.
And in a blink of an eye, a brush fire can quickly get out of control. So, of course, Tucson Fire Department Captain Barrett Baker is here to tell us how we can prevent them. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
I always have a good time.
Stuff.
It is, and I think on a national level, you know, we see these huge fires over the course of these months. You see Smokey the Bear always talking about, you know, campfire safety and this and that, but on a local level within the city of Tucson, I don't think that we have that constant in your face like this can happen to you, but we always see it. And these things can start off very, very small, but again, you talk about the dry conditions, April, May, June, we have windy conditions, and wind is definitely not an ally when it comes to being a firefighter. So we can talk about just some of the things. There's some video footage right there. This happened about 3 weeks ago, and what we had here is a very, very small brush fire that started in an alley. It spread to a backyard shed. Next door to that, there was a giant carport that had 2 vehicles in it. That caught on fire. And then to the other side, there you can see another vehicle that caught fire. So that's the reality of what we do face here when it comes to these brush fires. Again, it goes from brush to weed to smaller bushes, sometimes to a tree, to a house. And we can prevent that, though. We can prevent that by basically putting into place a defensible space, okay? When we talk about defensible space, we want just a clearing around your house. How do you do that? Everybody's favorite thing, you go out and you do a little landscaping. So it's not fun to do, but the weeds, overgrown trees, all of those things, that's when you get into danger because fire can spread up and it can spread out. When we say up, if the fire starts in the weeds and then you have a bush next to that, it jumps to the bush. Then you have a little bit higher shrub, jumps to that. Then it gets into the tree, jumps to that. And so oftentimes those trees are really bordering right against your house, gives it just an expressway right into that. So that's how we talk about going up. It's like a staircase. If you take away one of those stairs, then the fire doesn't get to go up. Windy conditions when it comes to that, again, it is going to be blown from point A to point Z very, very quickly. So you have to take out all the middle letters to the alphabet, and by doing that, then you're basically putting in almost a fire stop. When it comes to wildland firefighting, that's what you see the big forest fires, and they always talk about having like a fire break. What is that? It's taking the fuel out of that particular area, and that's what we want to do on a smaller scale around your home. Just make sure that you have an area around the home that is fuel-free, combustible-free, and by doing that, then we should be able to avoid these types of situations.
So if we had like a easy rule of thumb on how much distance maybe should be between my home and my closest shrubbery of any kind.
It's tough to give that actual rule of thumb because it really depends on the situation. If you live in a neighborhood that has like the tract homes, you know, oftentimes those are only 10 to 15 feet apart. So there's a little bit of mobile home parks, again, very, very close proximity, but you can even have defensible space in areas like that. Again, just make sure that your oleanders and those types of things are trimmed back and you don't have anything touching your actual home. That's when you get that easy from A to B type of thing. Some of the really, really commonsensical things that unfortunately don't turn out to be that on an annual basis when it comes to taking, and how do you remove those, okay? Obviously, we've got the hands and we've got the pull the weed manually technique. Not real fun to do that. You've got the tools. You've got your hula hose, you've got shovels, rakes, doing all those things. You've got your sprays that you can use, all right? That'll go out and kill some of the vegetation. What do we never want to use, though? The flamethrower, okay? Every year we see people that have a torch and they go out there and they burn weeds with the torch. Recipe for disaster, and we have plenty of pictures and videos to show that. So again, in the city and outside the city for that matter, never use a torch when it comes to burning weeds because especially in the daytime, you cannot see the flame itself. So you go right up to your home to get some of those weeds and you think that you're just getting the weeds themselves. It actually can get underneath and you know, most houses here are built from wood, and all it takes is a little bit of heat to get underneath there, and hours later given some oxygen, that can obviously take off. And so we always see these fires that are in the walls of the homes. So that's probably our number one thing is if we're trying to remove weeds and the like, don't use flames.
Yeah, super
Use
important.
the elbow grease, people.
Yeah, manual labor, exactly.
Get the kids out there pulling weeds.
Put sunscreen on, use a hat, get out there, get crazy with it, exactly.
And this is kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, there it is right there.
And you can't see that flame. Obviously, you know, in this particular case, he's very close to something. Just to give you a crazy example, though, we had that a few years ago where somebody used that type of torch. They put it in their garage afterwards. The torch itself was still very, very hot, and it was leaning against a combustible piece of wood. Hours later, they came out at midnight. Their entire garage was completely involved in fire, including 2 cars. So it's just not something that we want to do. But again, this weekend, go out there, clear things out. Defensible space, that's the key term, and by doing that, then hopefully you are never on the receiving end of a video like that.
It is. And you know, Arizona is known for, you know, that we have wildfires and we have wildfire season.
Right.
But this is something all year round we need to keep an eye out. You know, not a nice and trim yard doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe.
Well, and you know, we have Mount Lemmon that's so close. We've got the White Mountains. We see these big forest fires. Those are obviously terrible, but we have much smaller versions, as we saw with that earlier video. That was, I mean, just somebody lost 2 cars, their house was threatened, a neighbor lost a car. Why? All because a very small fire started and it spread quickly. So just do a little preventative maintenance, and we won't be having to come back and talk about that next year.
And your wife won't be mad that you went out and did some yard work.
Well, exactly.
Hello.
Brownie points. Brownie points.
Oh, brownie points.
Barrett, we always love it when you come.
Thanks for having
so
me.
much.
Have a safe summer.
Yes, and for more information and safety tips, you can go to fire.tucsonaz.gov.